Welcome to WROL Broadcast. I am 8Mail, and with me today we have Burger,
What's up?
Mr. Zubaz,
Very thankful to be here again.
and long time, been over a year since we've had you on. Mostly Costly, or do you just go by Costly now?
I pretty much just go by Costly. I mean, most of the socials itself still mostly, but yeah, I'm here and ready to talk about Spoiler.
All right, so unlike the rest of society, you've come down in price a little bit, so we will
Yeah.
get right into it. We had, Burger, you weren't going to buy the new tunes, but as I did with the rebirth tokens, you broke anyway.
Yeah, I ended up just kept sitting there, and I was watching some of the streams, and I was just like, man, I want to get in on this. And plus, I'm always hoping that somehow I can buy my way to a Siege, World's Finest. But it's very evident. It doesn't really matter what I do, so I'm gonna be stuck as a bridesmaid forever.
And before we get into the new tunes, we had before the Siege issue with the extra energy. Supposedly WB said that's fixed, so we hopefully will see. Has anybody tested that? Do we know? I've been really out of the loop this last couple weeks.
I have not tested it, but I haven't seen anything. And the most I can say is just that if you look at the top of the Siege, like the leaderboard right now, it doesn't appear that anybody is obviously 3 matches ahead or something. So that could be a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, Josh was streaming an hour and a half ago, and when he got done with his Siege matches, he was in first, and he only bought the energy, so
we know he cheated then. Yeah, I saw that. I lost one tune on. I hadn't decided if I'm going to buy every day this time, but I lost one tune, and I was like, wow, M4 is the only person who hasn't lost a tune. And then I saw Josh, I'm like, oh dang. I was like,
I haven't lost a tune yet.
The King of Siege has returned.
Yeah,
Nice.
I haven't lost a tune either. I've only done all 18 matches though.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let's get into the tunes. Let's do Jace first, because Burger, you're the only one who has him geared, so that'll probably go a little quicker. So what are your just overall thoughts on him?
I like reading his kit at first. I mean, it actually seemed pretty intriguing, and I think same with everybody. We all had kind of hoped, hey, could this be something that is stopping this speed meta that we're been kind of riding for the last 6 or 7 months? And so it was really excited about it. I still think it was a step towards that direction, but at the end of the day, he's really a fast tank. That's the best summary. So I mean, he's a fast red tank. He's a little bit better than average speed. I think he's top in the top 40 for speed or whatever, and but everything else kind of leaves a lot to be desired.
That's unfortunate. And before we get too into his kit, Zubaz, I know he's from Future State. They've recently started doing a bunch of Future State characters, or a couple anyway.
Yeah. I'll talk about Jace just a little bit here. I do think that the general consensus was, who is that? I think a lot of people, when they saw the silhouette, they were guessing kind of the various Batman, Batwing, all the different Batman guys. And, it turned out to be Jace. And when they revealed that, a lot of people were not familiar with him. And it is because he's very new. He is the Batman of the future. He is, if you're not familiar with Future State, that is basically DC right now, their peak into what comes, far, far down the road. And spoiler alert, Jace Fox saves Gotham. He is the Batman of the future. I really like Jace. I think that they've done a great job with him as a character. He's very different than Batman. Batman is a character that comes out of almost vengeance. He becomes a superhero because his parents are killed. Jace is the exact opposite. he becomes a hero because he kills somebody, basically, more or less. And he's a very interesting and progressive character. He also operates in a Gotham that's very different than Bruce Wayne does. Jace not only has to protect the citizens from the criminals, but he's also protecting the citizens and the criminals from sort of the totalitarian government state that they've got there operating under the magistrate. So it's a very interesting dynamic that they've got. We get a lot of his backstory comes from a digital comic that DC has been publishing during the pandemic, his Future State issues, which were relatively brief, and then his new series, which so far so good. I think it's only 2 issues in now, maybe, which is I Am Batman, starring Jace. He is Lucius Fox's son, and he's not like as good as Batman in terms of martial arts or technology. Like he uses a lot of burner phones and stuff. But what he's better at is sort of being a public hero for people that really need it. So I think he's a character that people should definitely check out. He's about to be the star and focus of a lot of the stuff that they're doing this next coming year. So definitely check that out if you're interested in that version of a Batman.
Cool. All right, well, let's get back into the kit a little bit. And so my first question to you, Burger, and I think a lot of people want to know, is that speed down, the new mechanic based around altering or having the speed manipulated, your turn meter manipulated. How does that work as good as you had hoped, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, as good as I would hope. So it triggers, very. I mean, I haven't seen it not trigger yet. And so he's definitely hitting, like, anytime, like, whether or not he's getting hit or it's just manipulating his turn meter. The only problem is that it's not, like, I would like it to be a little more punishing. Like, I would like somebody to see him on the other team and say, you know what, I'm not bringing Black Flash right now, because if I bring Black Flash and if I start off with his 3 or his 2, like, I'm going to get punished for it.
How much damage does it do, roughly, would you say? Just out of
the most I think I've seen it do is probably a third or 40% whenever it crits. So he's not going to, like, even against, like, L5 versus L5, like, he's not taking it, like, it's not overly punishing if he gets hit. So to me, the turn meter down that he's getting hit with is still worse than the benefit of him retaliating. Like, I'd rather take Cassie or Azrael and, gamble with them.
But he does stay alive very well with those amazing affinity resistance ups.
Yeah, he does hold on for a little while, for sure. But yeah, I mean, but I wouldn't say, I mean, for turn 0 taunt, like, there's other tanks that I would probably take before him.
Yeah, I mean, I was really hoping he'd be an answer to Black Flash. I wish he was a strength up character, because intellect based doesn't do you a lot of good. And then if anything but affinity resistance, be it crit chance up or intellect up, would have made it so much better.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, if they would have changed that to intelligence up, like, that would have been, so much better.
And Costly, do you have any thoughts on Jace?
I have quite literally 0. He is R1 for me, or R2, whatever you get him at with the character packs.
Okay.
And hasn't been geared at all, and I have read him a little bit in the comics, but that's about it. So I don't have too many thoughts.
Do you have an early legendary order for him, Burger?
So I took his 5 first to start battle with taunt, because that's kind of like a gate for a lot of his things. If he has that taunt, then after that I took his 4 second, just because, if he's going to combat, people manipulating his turn meter, why not have it to where he's attacking, back after that. Then I took awareness third, just because he's a taunter, and adding that awareness would help with that survivability a little bit more. And then I took his 1/4 with the intelligence up on every hit. Now I've only had that trigger for his 3 hits, I think 1 or 2 times out of all the times I've run him. So I haven't quite seen a 50% chance on that. Now he does 2 pretty regularly, but I've only seen the 3 a couple times. And then finally I took his 3/5, with gain the 2 agility ups of taunting.
Okay. Yeah, his 1 I felt originally that's what I would have took first or second, just because I wanted him to be the Black Flash counter. But if he's not really a Black Flash counter, then, or if he's not doing a good job of it, then I guess there's really not a lot of reason to take it.
Well, yeah, you need his 4 to gate that though first.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a little disappointing. I was really hoping. I'm dying to see Black Flash die off. He's already starting to rear his head in Siege. Day 2. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I was gonna say for lore. So there was always, what was it? Batwing was what, Luke Fox?
Yes.
Is this just him being reimagined for Future State?
No, it's his brother.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, and so I think they did want to go in a different direction with it. So it was it's his younger brother. Originally was Tim. He was always kind of known as Tim, and then during his solo series, he changes his name to Jace. And I've actually, it's very interesting. I'll mention one little bit about this. Is the character goes through a very important transformation, and that is why he changes his name. He does it kind of in the context of training with Katana. It's a big moment for him where he's very much leaving this past life behind. And it's reminiscent to me of, somebody changing their name for religious reasons. I'm thinking of Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, that sort of situation. And the community, the DCL community, has just been calling him Jace for the most part, which is great, because it's a way of showing that you respect that. I do think some of it is just because they don't know who he is and they see his name as Jace. I was a little surprised and annoyed that his bio in-game refers to him as Tim. It's not his nickname is Jace. He's fully changed his name and persona to reflect that he's a better person now. So that part was interesting. But he used to exist as Tim, as the younger brother, and now he succeeds and becomes the Batman.
All right. Cool. Well, I think that means it's time to move on to spoiler. And do you want to do the biography of her, Costly, since this is your bay?
I mean, I can, I guess. I mean, honestly, in this realm, this is where Zubaz does have more comic knowledge than I do. But as far as her, she's a character that I've really enjoyed for about, I don't know, when did Batman Eternal come out? Mid New 52 was when I was really introduced to her. And
yeah, that's 2015 around.
Yeah, something like that. And that's really where, I mean, she'd been around before then, but that's really when I got introduced to her, was when they redid her origin during that. And from there, I just kind of fell into her older comics, and so that's what I got into it. But her was Stephanie. She's basically the daughter of the villain Cluemaster. And she first becomes Spoiler because she starts spoiling her dad's crimes, basically, is the way it works. And then her dad eventually catches up to her, and then that's kind of like when the Bat family swoops in and pulls her out of it, and gives her somewhere to go with it and kind of saves her from that moment. And then from there she ends up becoming Robin and then Batgirl, and that's about, like I said, Zubaz probably knows way more than I do on bio for her. I'm real bad about it. So.
No, it's fine. I mean, you definitely hit all the major points. She has been around, I think, a lot longer than people realize. So she's around since 1992, which is when Tim Drake is Robin after, everything happens with Jason Todd. So, she's been around a minute. I really like characters that do progressive storylines for DC Comics. A lot of people know that I love Aquaman, and I think Aquaman has always been amazing because he's always kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. He's the first superhero wedding in panel in comic books. They're the first ones that have a kid. They have the kid die, like all of these things. Stephanie Brown in the late 90s had a teenage pregnancy storyline that was like enormous. DC, Marvel, they really hadn't been doing a ton of that thing. And for the most part, people thought that they handled it really well. And so that was kind of her big claim to fame. She also has been through a lot. She died, people thought that she died, and then they kind of like unwrote it pretty quickly because there was so much outrage about it. She's been tortured a couple times. Like she has been through a ton. When I look at her kit and I compare it to the lore and everything, I think it's interesting. I think it's kind of, it plays on her training from the Bat family, from Black Canary, from Wildcat, that sort of thing. One of the things to always keep in mind about Stephanie Brown is that she's not that good at being a crime fighter. Like that's why she's kind of rebuked as Robin. That's why they're always not sure. Like they're like, okay, why don't you go be Spoiler instead of Batgirl for a while? Because she's kind of not great at it. And I think that her staying invisible and kind of out of the way is a good way of reflecting that. But yeah, she's a really cool character that's been around for a while, and I think she's a good addition to the game, and I think that her kit reflects a lot of who she is.
Awesome, thank you. All right, before we get into spoilers usage with Costly, Burger, what are your initial thoughts of her?
So I like her out of the two. I like her out of the reworks and her. I would probably rank her third, and obviously Bat CC like 107th. And so, but so I like her. I think out of the two, she doesn't need as much support to be good, so you can kind of plug and play with her on any team. I don't know if she has like, I would probably say she's B tier, just because like she wouldn't be somebody that I would be like, hey, you can absolutely build a team around her, whereas that's generally what I would say A tiers would be. But I would say B, and I mean I so far, I've used her every Siege match. So
have you used her yet,
Yep.
Zubaz?
I have not. Without getting too much into it, have not had access to electricity or internet until just this last 2 days. So I have not had the opportunity to even finish her event yet.
And as most of you know, Zubaz is from New Orleans, so he is recovering from a massive hurricane.
Yeah. So Spoiler, unfortunately, was not the top of my priorities, but I am happy to see that people are really enjoying her and her kit so far.
And Costly, you have her RB3?
4.
4 already. Okay, wow.
So yeah, I bought the crystals today. I broke down. I've never bought those crystals ever.
Oh, really?
The Siege crystals, and I bought them today. Just because partly I wanted to get to RB4 so I could actually see my my shard count going to 5, because I'm just super scared of missing RB5. And then the other part is just keep going. So
I just used her for the first time yesterday, only at L2. I've been a little cheaper than usual, but she I'm surprised at how much I like her. She's actually seems like a pretty good character, and every now and again when everything procs right with those random call assists, you can really do some crazy stuff. So if you want to kind of give us your lowdown and then go through your legendary order as well on what you think of her. Costly.
Okay. So with her, I'm very, very, very happy with what they've done with her. I think she is really good, and on Tuesday when the character packs came out, I took her R2 and I was messing around, and her double damage invisibility upgrades are all actually baked into her regular moves and not the legendaries. So at R2, I was able to even kind of test out her damage, and she was under critting and stuff. She was like wiping out like certain blues at R2, you know. So that was crazy. And then finally, when I got on Thursday and got her like rebirth, I got the rest of her kit, which was the ability to give herself invisibility and such. She is bugged a little bit right now, so I'm hoping they get those fixed. I was actually going to make a Reddit post here in a little bit. Her 5th and her 4th are both bugged. She's not actually giving out the intups all the time. Every once in a while it happens, but for the most part, she's not giving out the intups on her first passive. And then, well, the 5th I wouldn't actually say is really bugged. It's just they did that double gate thing again with her that they do every once in a while with some characters. And so she has a 60% chance on her passive to gain invisibility. And then the legendary for that is also a 50% chance to gain awareness. So that awareness only gets its 50% chance if you got the invisibility. So no invisibility, no awareness at the end of her turn. So it's kind of frustrating there, but that's like the two things that I don't like about what's going on with her right now. Everything else, she can smack super hard. The damage under shields when she's invisible is great. The double damage when she's invisible is great. The AoE hits real hard. The basic hits even harder. And then the nice thing about the AoE is it has that double call assist if she's invisible. And that thing, like, you come through, and if there's blues on the other side that are unprotected, and especially if she's going to crit and she's invisible, she's going to kill the blues. And so that double call assist is going to come through and still go through even if the character you clicked on died. So then it's going to hit some other character on the other side. Now, typically what I do is, like, say if there's a Lex, I click on him because it'll put taunt on him, and it'll make sure the call assist goes there. And then she'll be able to wipe out, like, most of the time in that scenario, you would see, like, a Black Flash and, like, a Spectre. She'll kill both of them, throw the taunt on Lex, and then the double call assist will normally kill Lex, depending who you have on your team. And then from that moment, then there's the 4th person, and if the 4th person was a low defensive style red or even another blue, they're probably dead as well. And so, but that's specifically to be able to achieve stuff like that, you have to get her to start with invisibility, which means running her with Clayface, which can get dangerous when there's a Wonder Girl on the other side.
Yeah.
But in those scenarios, I recommend running a Brainiac lead, because there's a lot of teams she works really well with. And once she gets that intup working on her passive, it's going to be real interesting to see how well she works into a bunch of teams, because she also gives out shield on her too. So she works with Brainiac, and then Brainiac helps you protect your team from Wonder Girl when you got to run Clayface with her. So it's kind of crazy how well she fits as a puzzle piece into some teams.
I didn't even realize she was a special damage character.
She's not special damage.
Oh.
So that's the thing. And normally I would almost count that as like a negative, that she gives out an intup, or not a intup, but like it's a stack of intups she gives to one
it's
person.
A random ally. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a random ally with a 25% turn meter up. The turn meter is working right now, by the way. It's just the intups aren't being
It actually says
given.
50% turn meter up.
Oh, is it 50%? Okay.
Yeah, 50%.
I thought it was 25 for some reason this whole time. Whatever.
You need to check your rings.
But for sure, that ability is great as far as the turn meter up. It's going to be even better when she's giving out intups. And that'll kind of help her bridge the gap between teams, which I find interesting. Because she works real well off of running like a strength up team, but at the same time, she can then give the intups to like, Lex or a Black Flash. That's also an interesting comp, is when you put her with Black Flash, and then Black Flash gets double called assist. And so he hits his basic twice, and then he has a ton of speed ups and completely changes the speed of the way that match is already going.
Did you hear earlier about Hate wanting to remove Black Flash? So I don't know if we should be giving out tips about...
But there's some interesting comps. And I would say as far as like a legendary order... oh wait, real quick before I do legendary. I didn't talk about her 2. Her 2 is awesome because it does damage. It while she's buffing a teammate, and it also doesn't proc retaliation and can go around taunts.
Nice.
And so when she does that, and it's great with Clayface because she goes before Clayface, and then you dish the invisibility to Clayface and the True Sight. And so that works with, like, say if somebody has a buff they start with, like an awareness that you want to take. Well, now Clayface, because he has True Sight, can take that, and now he has invisibility, which gives him taunt and allows him to taunt onto his second to third, and so on. And then typically, when running with her and you do that on her first turn, Clayface doesn't lose taunt until like turn 4.
Have you
5.
run her with Mirror Master yet? 'Cause I haven't used him in
Everybody's been telling me
forever.
to, and I keep forgetting to
Yeah.
just go try.
That just sounded
I-
like fun. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah,
I
I said the
still
same
have-
thing to him last night.
Yeah, it's something I'm gonna have to do. And then the random silence on her one is kind of, it's okay. Like, silence isn't that strong of a debuff anyways, but it is kind of nice. Like, it brings her kit together and complements it. So as far as a legendary order, I would probably say
Everybody tells me 3 is her first because of the call
3 is
assist.
definitely the first because the double call assist.
Okay.
Then right after that, I would say the 4, right? Yeah, because that's the, this is the problem with, like, when you take a character immediately up to L5 and you just press all the buttons until, like, it won't let you press buttons anymore. You kind of forget what all legendaries do. But so I would say 5, 4,
You mean
3.
3, 4, potentially?
Sorry, yeah.
So most people told me the
3.
2, the applied True Sight on her, is the one that...
Yeah, I did that second.
So the only reason I would say, it depends. Like, if you're planning to run her with Clayface a lot, I would say the 4 is better than the 2 in that spot because that's what enables her to hit under shields when she's invisible. And that will, like, take a Hal Jordan comp or a Terra comp and be like, what shields? And you'll just immediately go right underneath them and still kill whatever blue your target is.
That's
Right
interesting
in
because they
turn
were
1.
arguing about that on Atlantis After Dark, so I was curious. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say 3, 4, 2, 1, 5. And the only reason the 5 is so late right now is because of that double gate. It's just, it destroys that ability. Like, for the first 2 days I had her, I thought she was bugged where she couldn't stack awareness.
Yeah, M4 told me she
How-
was bugged and not to take it.
Yeah, that's how, like, slow I was gaining them. The only reason I even know it stacks is there's been 2 times this siege already where I didn't plan for a character on the other side, it was 1 time during the siege, 1 time during Wraith today. The character on the other side, I wasn't planning for the fact that I didn't have a way to purge or, like, block buffs. So I had to turn meter down them, and then with Clayface be playing speed downs until finally I could lock them. And so Spoiler got to take a lot of turns in those matches. And so that's the only way I knew that she actually could stack awareness. If those matches hadn't happened, I would still think she couldn't stack it. That's how low it's happening
Wow.
because of the double gate. It's real bad. But beyond that, like, I think she has a really interesting kit, and she can kind of, like, she can bridge gaps with teams and put characters together that you would never really think to put together, or kind of glue certain comps together. And I did a damage comparison video that I put up on YouTube that I know a lot of people have seen now. And in that video, I did a couple comps where it was, like, just testing her damage, right? Like, where you run, like, Deadshot Hired Gun and then, like, Kilowog. Well, because I was trying to get her invisible, I couldn't do the Kilowog Cheeto one, so I did Kilowog Clayface in her. And she took out, it was like a Rebirth 3 or 4 Bat CC and then, like, a Rebirth 2 or 3 Cheetah. And her AoE just completely wiped out both of them. And, like, that's when she crits. When she crits, she can get all the way up to, like, godlike damage. But for the rest of the time, her damage is, like, I would say moderate, like, decent to moderate. When she's invisible, she starts hitting a lot harder just because everything gets doubled. Except for on her 2, that damage is still just the same. But beyond that, like, her damage is good, her kit's good. I think they did a really good job with her. I'm very pleased. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that it was her, I was like, oh, Costley's going to be so excited. It'll get him out of Raid Shadow Legends for a little bit.
Yeah. I'm out for a little bit.
I will say, just listening to Costley talk about it, I'm like, man, I really need to start rebirthing her really high. Like his energy and excitement around it is contagious. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Costley, how do you
Nobody
feel
else
about
should rebirth it. Just
her?
let me have the unique, please. Just everybody stay away. No, I'm just kidding. I want people to. I want people to join me there. She's great.
How do you feel about her skins, Costley?
I love both of them. I'm so happy. It's like it's the first time that I'm like, holy crap, they got both the skins just absolutely right. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but in recent memory, there's always been, well, recent memory is King Shark, right? So it's like, but both of her skins look amazing. It was cool that like I got to see like the look that the spoiler look, the classic one that looks real good, and then I also got to see like her current like rebirth suit. I was like, and I can switch back and forth. Like I've switched back and forth like every other day. It's been fun.
that's kind of how I am with Blackfire. She's kind of a B character, but I was really happy. And then when you take them RB5, certain characters do a lot better than they normally do, and then you can use them in every match comfortably, and you don't feel like they're super OP. But they're more than good enough to be used on the comps. So that's good. Glad you enjoy her. Any other thoughts on the rework, since we haven't done an episode on either one of those? Have you played any of those, Burger, much with Riddler or Two-Face?
yeah, actually, I'm a really big fan of Riddler. Like he was the one. Like this month, I was like, hey, I'm gonna take. I was really strongly considering taking him RB4. And I probably will at some point. I'll get the shards, but I ended up settling for taking Miss Martian RB4 and then juicing up some of the raid tunes. But yeah, I really like Riddler a lot, and Two-Face is slapping Coda so far. So I've liked him as well.
Zubaz, I know you like Riddler quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I love Riddler as the character. He's probably my favorite villain of all time. Maybe him or Poison Ivy. So I had him RB2 before this month. I felt really good about the changes that they made. His biggest downside, which is something that Poison Ivy suffers from now a little bit, is you want them to get hit. And for him, you wanted him to get hit, but he always had awareness. And so none of his like speed downs and all that stuff, none of it would trigger. They fixed that by giving him the death immunity, which is awesome. And so now just the way they did that, and then the way that they changed his second passive, I don't know that they're ever going to give us a truly successful Black Flash counter, but Riddler comes in the ballpark. Like if Black Flash opens with his AoE and all of a sudden you hit him with all those speed downs, that nerfs him quite a bit. So that's why I'm really excited for him. I've been using him under Aquaman just to give him that extra crit immunity, and it's been really good so far.
Can I add one thing with them? So I actually am really happy that they changed his skin from looking like a molester on there.
I'm partial to his legendary skin. I know Kage usually can't stand up when he uses him from his new skin, but it's they did a good job. I love Riddler's, like you, Riddler's one of my favorite DC villains, and you reminded me that I said I was definitely going to RB5 him. I was hedging a little bit this month because he's one of those characters I don't know if he really needs it, but I went ahead and took him to RB2, which means I don't like, with the one exception of Booster Gold, which I'll eventually finish. I'm definitely going to take him RB5, and if I ever finish getting Shards of Brainiac, I'll take him or finish taking him to RB5.
Yeah, I think the rebirth actually works really well for him because it adds that extra defense, and even though he has the ability, so it's like they took away the awareness, so he gets hit and he actually applies the stuff now, that's great. If he's down to 1 HP and he's just surviving on death immunity, he no longer retaliates. So you want him to be a little bit beefier, and I think that the extra rebirth levels really helps with that. I was watching Josh stream with him at like L4, and just the world of difference between L4 versus RB2. I was like, oh no, my Riddler is handling this like no problem.
Yeah, I just took him to RB2. I actually haven't used him since I rebirthed him. I played a siege match against Burger, actually, and Riddler was so clutch. I mean, he saved my butt from his RB4 Martian Manhunter, or Miss Martian. I mean. So it sold me. I was like, all right, I'm pulling the trigger. And and he, I think based on the timing, he'll probably get one of the earlier sales, so I'll take him to at least RB4 with being close to RB5, because I have some shards. But and then Two-Face, you're right. Two-Face is a lot better. I mean, he doesn't really excite me, but he's definitely a lot better than he was. He's usable. Can we, real quick before we finish, I'm struggling on a legendary order to post for people for Riddler. Right now, I'm listing, and I think he's one of the ones, you just need to take him L5, because you really want everything. But I've seen everyone post so many different things for him, and I'm just curious what your takes are on him, Zubaz. I went with first.
I would say this: if you're playing, I think you really need to think about what you want to do with him. If you are planning on using him at high PvP, it's a different order for me than if you are somebody that's really only going to use him in raids. And I think that that's a viable option too, to just build him for raids and call it a day. And if you are building him for raids, you want his 1 very early, because he's applying those intelligence downs and agility downs that will help the bonus characters or Superwoman or Darkseid, whoever, regardless if they're intelligence-based or strength-based. And you want to bump his 2 all the way to the end, because that second shocking revelation, all it does is take up more time on the boss that could be better spent with like a Superwoman hit or something like that. So I think that build order is very different than his PvP order, which for me, I think his 4 and his 3 become a lot more important at that point.
See, I had for PvP, I had his 4 last, applying agility downs at the end of his turn. Do you disagree with that?
I do, and it's more important than you think. And the reason for that is that opens the gate on his stun, on his retaliation. And that was something that Josh saw play out. Josh didn't take that as one of his legendaries, and you miss it a lot. So basically what happens is, let's say Black Flash does his AoE to start out, and you retaliate. What you're retaliating with, there's no agility downs when you retaliate. So he's not going to stun him right away. But at the end of his turn, you're then adding those agility downs to Black Flash, such that on the next turn, whether it's the enemy turn or your next turn or whatever, now you have the ability to stun him either immediately or on a retaliation. All right. I think that if you want to stun, if that's how you're, I think that that's actually a lot more important than people think.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's one of those ones you really want him to be L5.
I agree. I think every single one is good. Yeah.
All right, guys. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up? We gotta get to the Owls. Actually, we'll announce this on the podcast because it's kind of fun. But we're having an Owls versus Atlantis After Dark fantasy football tournament that we're all about to join. So we might have to keep you updated on that during the course of the season.
Nice.
That'll be interesting.
Sounds good.
Yeah, this will be fun. Me and Burger are in it. You're not in it, right, Costly?
No.
Okay. I don't remember who all's in it. I know Hawkeye's in it. I know a bunch of the AAD folk. So, will be fun. I got to get in there here in just a moment. But we will go ahead and wrap up there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks, Costly, for making a trip. Maybe one day I'll join you guys on your...
Yeah, we'll have to have you on there. We got to have Burger on there, too. We got to have a lot of people on there.
Do it.
You had an episode just come out today, so I got...
Yeah.
Because you had like a 3-month gap in between, right?
We had a 2-month gap where it was just like nobody could figure out how to get all of us in the same spot at the time, which actually is what kind of led to bringing Zubaz on so that we had more people to be able to, because Zubaz is now one of our other hosts.
Zubaz is on everything now. He's on more stuff than I am now.
Because there's and you know what, I love calling out Du Bois, so I'm just gonna do it here. Du Bois consistently, if you go look at our podcasts, you can count the number of videos that he's not in, and it's roughly about half of the podcast episodes. So he's a real busy guy though, but it's funny, and so we had a lot of guests to kind of fill in for him, so we'll have to bring more people on because we definitely need to. So
yeah, I'm usually pretty on top of it. I think I missed your last episode, but I've listened to every one of them until your hiatus, and then I stopped paying attention for a little bit. So
yeah, no, we could definitely see in the views that that hiatus didn't really help us. So
yeah, people will catch it. You guys did a really good job. I always enjoyed listening. So
For sure.
I appreciate it.
all right, guys, we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.